heavy this helmet is. It's a bit, and I'm sticking with it. So yeah, Feet of Clay, we are back to Ankh-Morpork, we are back with the Watchmen, we are back to the Watch, we are back to a fantastic story. I am seriously debating whether I should keep the helmet on, but I think this is a challenge, I'm sticking with it. If I keep telling myself that, maybe I will. But yeah, this book, it's fantastic. So it's been about a decade since I read this one last, and boy howdy, did I forget a lot of other things. Within the first 30 pages, we have 2 murders, we have an attempted assassination of Commander Vimes, and we have a discovery of a burglary, oh no, not burglary, robbery in progress. First, we're not even at the 30 page mark. And every single piece, every single thread, every little breadcrumb just falls into place perfectly. It's so cool. It's So what is this book about? Golems. It's about freedom, sense of purpose, what it means to be alive, what it means to be not alive, what it means to be sense of self. Feet of Clay came out originally in 1996, and the cover illustration is by Josh Kirby, the magnificent artist that he was. And the back says, there's a werewolf with pre-lunar tension in Ankh-Morpork, and a dwarf with attitude and a golem who's begun to think for itself. But for Commander Vimes, head of Ankh-Morpork City was, that's only a start. There's treason in the air, a crime has happened. He's not only going to find out who done it, but how done it too. He's not even sure what they done. But as soon as he knows what the questions are, he's going to want some answers. And honestly, this is one of the better crime novels that I have read. Just hands down. Fancy, not fancy, just... Terry Pratchett was fantastic when it came to the Watchmen series and the crimes. Oh, and this is also about kings. And about how... well, the weird thing about kings is that people have a very strange tendency to want to follow them. A lot of us seem to want to have kings and venerate someone else. So when something about it. We also get introduced to some new characters. We get, so the Watch is expanding. It's a new century. There's a lot of things that have changed from the beginning, from when they were like, well, Fred and Nubby and Vimes, and that was pretty much it. And then Carrot came along and things changed. Carrot is now captain, and although pretty much everyone knows that he is the king, he ain't. But the new character that we get is Cheery Littlebottom, and I believe that if you watch, I haven't watched the movies, I'm just not interested in them. I am a huge Discworld fan, considering the series that I have, I'm just not that fussed about the movies, but as I'm given to understand, Cheery plays a huge part in a movie, and I'm actually pretty happy about that because Cheery is a fantastic character. So no, I was almost gonna say no spoilers, but this is a spoilerific series, so reader beware, you're in for a lot of spoilers. I should probably say that at the beginning. But yeah, Cheery Littlebottom, very traditional last family name for dwarves. Of course, Cheery is very used to people laughing at Littlebottom because it's kind of what people do, but Vimes doesn't. And the entire interaction of when Vimes is interacting for the first time with Cheery is just the writing in this book. Another huge thing in this plot, in the plot of this book, is heraldry. And that's one of the things that I find so interesting about how Terry Pratchett, now that I'm rereading as an adult these books that I read when I was a teenager and learning English for the first time, it's realizing just how much goes into every single story, every single novel that is a Discworld. This has so much to do with baking with clay, the entire thing about golems, although not going into like details with it, it gets such a nice touch of it. But a huge part of this story is heraldry. Now, Captain Wimes, sorry, Commander Wimes is now married to Sybil, Lady Sybil, Lady Rumpkin, meaning that his wife now would very much like her husband to go see the Ankh-Morpork Royal College of Heralds in regards to his own heraldry. Problem though, because of course, see, Samuel Wimes is a descendant of someone who back in the day was called Stone-Faced Wimes, and he is a very unpopular person in the history of Ankh-Morpork, because old Stone-Faced Wimes was the one who took care of the last king of Ankh-Morpork. That king was not a nice person, far from it, but because he was the king, people are still like, yeah, honestly rather unfair to the person who took up the axe. Oh yeah, the entire College of Heraldry is... We are introduced to the two old heralds and the animals who are the building blocks of the heraldry. Like, instead of just, drawing it, like, basically making up, like I'm pretty sure the people in Round will do, what they do in Ankh-Morpork is that they literally set up the living heraldry. Like, you got the shield, you got the motto, you got the cabots, literal cabots nailed to the shield, and then you have the like hippos literally standing on either side, old arthritic hippos, and you have the literal owl spreading its wings on top, and you can imagine the poor animals need to stand for quite a while in order to get all of that work done. Like, the front has some of the heraldry, and you can just about imagine... Oh, it doesn't actually have... Well, we can look at... bit of a spoiler here, honestly. Edward St. John Dinobs, Earl of Ankh. In order to make this heraldry, they would literally have the hippo and the bull standing on either side. And I do mention, like, this entire page contains clues and hints and puns. See, the heralds, they really like their puns. And Dragon King of Arms is the one who is the head of this institution. And these days, with a lot of people coming into wealth, coming into a bit of a higher status in Ankh-Morpork, a lot of people really want their own coat of arms. And Dragon King of Arms isn't the biggest fan. Now, it turns out he is a vampire, so he's been doing this job for centuries. And he knows a lot about people of Ankh-Morpork, how their ancestry, their families, all of that. So he's an authority on who's who in Ankh-Morpork. Very interesting conversation that they have about Samwhime's ancestor. So Dragon King of Arms, he explains to Samwhimes why he isn't eligible for his own coat of arms, is because his ancestor was a regicide, and according to a law that was passed, the entire Wimes family, their lands, their all that they had, their coat of arms, struck down. Just not allowed to have it. So according to the law, Wimes isn't allowed a coat of arms. But I did mention the two murders at the beginning. Now, that would be that's literally two old men. One is the curator of the Dwarf Bread Museum. And if you know about dwarf bread, you just... offensive cookery, just taken to a whole other level. And the other man is Friar, I think it's Friar, Tuckleback. I think that's how you pronounce it. Did I write it down? No. Yeah, so you have an old museum curator and an old priest. And on top of everything, the patrician has been poisoned. Like, honestly, you pretty much cannot have anything taking part with the watch. in Ankh-Morpork without someone trying to kill a patrician. It's like, there are other targets. But also the entire thing with the patrician, like, honestly, dude knows what he knows, and when he's a little bit out of it, he seems to be like relapsing a little bit back in time, like he's very clearly reliving a schoolroom experience that he definitely had at assassin school, because I cannot imagine any other teacher in any other school lecture their students about arsenic and other poisons. So he literally points Cherry Littlebottom in that direction. That man, bless him. And oh yeah, I did also point you towards the coat of arms of the Earl of Ankh, because there's a subplot, a fairly big subplot, of people plotting to reinstate the Earl of Ankh, and they are convinced that our Corporal Nobby Nobs is the last Earl of Ankh. Nobby, the one who needs a literal official sign from the patrician claiming that he is most probably likely a human being. So Cherry, turns out, is a female dwarf, which is something that is not really talked about in dwarf culture. Like, you know that they are female dwarves, because otherwise probably wouldn't be any dwarves. So there's a very interesting conversation between Angua, the What's werewolf, and Cherry. And this is something that is often quoted, like in, well, this helmet doesn't help me lean my head back, but this conversation, part of it, is often quoted when it comes to good quotes from the Discworld novels. So we got Angua. There's plenty of women in this town that love to do things the dwarf way. I mean, what's the choices they've got? Barmaid, seamstress, or someone's wife. Well, you can do anything the men do, provided we do only what the men do, said Cherry. Angua paused. Oh, she said, I see. Ha, yes, I know that tune. So that's the dilemma that female dwarves face. They can't really talk about that they're female. They can show that they're female. They can talk, give any clue that they are female. They can't wear any makeup, jewelry, skirts, high heels. Being female just isn't talked about. And it is taboo. And that's something that we will definitely come into in future Discworld novels. There's also a really, really funny side story all about this vampire that keeps coming up to Watch House to complain about being killed while while working, and it turns out that every single job that he does is just absolutely not suitable for a vampire. Like working at a pencil factory, post sharpener, I think one of them was, holy water testing. Like, this guy just following these subplots with this one vampire guy, it was just like, Of course, this is also all about golems. We have this fantastic new character, another, called Dorfl, D-O-R-F-L, who is a golem. And the thing about golems is that they aren't alive. Never have been, never will be. They have the chum, which is essentially a piece of parchment that gives them life, and is literally in their heads. Essentially, golems are machinery. They do exactly what they are told, exactly as they are told. And people don't like them, because they, pretty much because of the uncanny valley, I would say. They kind of look like a living being, but they aren't, and that just puts people on edge. Even more so when it turns out that there is a golem going around killing people. And the entire plot with the golems. Listen, how everything just ties in together, because all of these things that just seem to not be a part of the plot, it all twists together into a whole. The golems are linked with the poisoning of the patrician. they are most certainly linked with the deaths of the two old men. And why the two old men died is because of the golems. This is such a good study in how to tie together plot points. The thing about Dorf is also that he comes in and he admits to the murder of the two old men. He also admits to a lot of other things, and he couldn't have possibly done, but that's because the first people who he meets at the house are Sergeant Cullen and Corporal Nubs. So they're old school, so it's like. But at the same time that Dorf is making his confession, there is a scene with the book, another golem. And the writing here is absolutely gorgeous because it's all about. Well, this scene is where Dybbuk, who works at a foundry, he works at a Strong in Terms Ironworks foundry, and basically he and the golem ends itself. Potentially not the first one, potentially not the last one, definitely not the last one. Honestly, if you are sentient enough to end yourself, you're probably sentient enough to be considered alive. That's all I'm saying. There's also mention of a white golem that screams. Well, golems don't have voices, they write their words on pieces of slab. But this white golem screams. I also noticed quite a few or a couple of references to other literature because, of course, there's very definitely a reference to Sherlock Holmes and Wims's more real-world logical opinion on the brilliant detective who just sees like a muddy code and calluses on fingers and comes to a certain conclusion, and then Wimes is like, or it could be that other way, I guess. Could be Sherlock Holmes. I also felt like there was some reference to Hercule Poirot. And then I am pretty certain that on page 211 there was a reference to the yellow wallpaper because, I mean, the patrician has been poisoned and they're trying to figure out where the poison is coming from. It's not food, probably not war. I think at this point Wimes is wondering if it's maybe the wallpaper, and I'm pretty certain that's a reference to the yellow wallpaper because he starts thinking about wallpaper driving you insane. And of course, because the patrician is out of commission, the guild heads meet up to discuss what their options are, and they pretty much come to a conclusion that it's in their best interest to start thinking about a successor. And quite conveniently, someone mentions that there is a descendant of the Earl of Ankh running around the town. Convenient. We also get an introduction to Cockbill Street, which is such a lovely description of like the people who are too poor to like have anything, but too proud to be anything. They are too proud to not buy soap and not be clean and not keep everything tidy, even though they're too poor to have food. So like I said, there are other golems who have been ending themselves, and people have been smashing golems up because of this whole thing with the white golem, and because people just in general do not like golems. They are creeped up by them, and the whole scene. I'm sorry, I keep jumping from one thing to another, but it's just. But there's an entire thing with poor Nubby trying to do, think the best of things, but he is the salty salt of the earth, and he's suddenly being invited to a get-together at Lady Selassie's. Now, she's the top of the top crust, and he's like, the entire thing with him, like getting him to drink beer and eat knuckle sandwich, and then I tried to convince him to become the next king of Ankh-Morpork, and he's like, I can do that, Wimes wouldn't be happy with it. And they're like, you can tell Wimes to do, but he's like, Wimes wouldn't be happy with it. And then Nobby literally jumps out of a window and books in. There's an entire thing with Angua having this dilemma regarding to the future, and that is something that opens up this sequence of future events in future books, and we will get to. And while all this is going down, poor Sergeant Fred Collins has been kidnapped while making inquiries, and he ends up being chased by the white golem, which is actually named Meshuka. I think that's how you would pronounce it. And poor Colin. I should be laughing, but dear lord. We also get to meet wee Matt Arthur, the Ratcatcher, who is not quite like the wee free man, but he's perhaps a pixie. He's something, and he is a big help in getting Colin to safety. And the entire thing with someone trying to set up Wimes, with trying to get him drunk. The man has been sober for a year. Trying to set him up with arsenic in his possession. Of course, Wimes isn't dumb enough to fall for that. But also the fact that someone tries to set him up is capable of getting into the office of Commander Wimes without being noticed by anyone. And not setting off any other traps, because Wimes has traps all over the place. The only one who could have been able to do that would have been someone who was flying like a bird. No, it all just ties in. And then at the end, when everything just gets so interesting. Like, we've had this build up the entire time, the entire story, every single page, building up. All these side plots. The coat of arms, college of heraldry. There is a vocal tick. Very particular vocal tick that serves as a clue throughout. Aha! Aha! There's only one character named who has this vocal tick, and we've been introduced to him in the beginning of the story. There's everything to do with the arsenic. The arsenic was in the candles, which was being produced by the owner of Meshuka, the white golem, which tied them directly to the old curator of the Dwarf Bread Museum, because he'd been, trying to save himself, so he had residue under his fingernails, which tied that to the assassin, or the poisoning of Patricia. Every single thread just pulled together into one image, one whole picture. And the ending is open. Like, it's pretty much a happy for now ending, and that's just brilliant, because it's pretty much setting us up for the next story. I think it's the next story with some point in the future, when we are actually going to Uberworld. Some point. But yeah, this was the 19th Discworld novel. Feet of Clay. Wonderful story. Wonderful. Very much recommended. The next one that we are going to cover will be my absolute favorite, Hawkfather. This is the one that I've been picking up again and again. I've reread it again, I think most often, of the Discworld novels. So I'm really looking forward to that one. But yeah, Feet of Clay. A really good one. Fantastic one. But I feel like I've been... Honestly, you just open these books up at any point, you just get to something interesting and funny. But yeah, I feel like I've been talking a lot this time around, and my throat is starting to feel a little sore. But yeah, well, thank you very much for watching. I really hope that I've sparked some interest in reading these novels. Highly recommended. And if you have read them, could you share your thoughts? Because I would really love to see someone else talk about Discworld novels. I love them. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I will hopefully see you again in some other video of mine. And thank you. Yes, bless.